afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Dealing. I'm here on behalf of the Community Outreach Club here on campus. In partnership today with the Social Science Department here, we're putting on Faces of Homelessness. This is a project we're working together with Hands on Hartford. So I'd like to give it to them. They're going to have an awesome presentation for you, and you're going to have plenty of time to have questions for them at the end. So thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Sarika Walker and I'm from Hands on Hartford, and I'm going to show you a quick video.
Picking up cigarette butts off the ground, I asked an old man for $1. Walking all night, the shelters are full, and the cops, they're looking to collar. It's been raining all day, so I got a hot meal at the local soup kitchen. I tried for a job, but I couldn't find work, 'cause I'm not in working condition.
Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile. Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile, walk a mile. Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a while in my shoes. Walk a mile, walk a mile.
Went on to get my final check at my last place of employment. I would gamble away most of my pay, but at least it gave me enjoyment. Went to the park, stayed there till dark, but the old man kept repeating his story. He said, I fought in the war, don't remember what for. Take a look at what's left of my glory.
Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile. Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile, walk a mile. Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a while in my shoes. Walk a mile, walk a mile.
From commanding a fleet to a man on the street, my life took a turn for the worst. But what's most disturbing is the ghost in my bourbon, who haunts with insatiable thirst. I lived there on that bench, just under the stench, and laughed as he gave me his bottle. Said, here's to you, friend, go well to your end, knowing you've met your role model.
Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile. Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile, walk a mile.
Walk a mile in my shoes, walk a while in my shoes.
Walk a mile, walk a mile.
So we're going to have a commentary of the video later on. But to give you a little background on Hands on Hartford, we are a nonprofit in Hartford, and we give services to people in Hartford, residents, and we have a community pantry, which is a place where people could come and get groceries for the week. We have a soup kitchen that's located downtown Hartford, and people could come and get a meal. And we also have a backpack program for kids who get free or reduced lunch, and we give them a backpack for the weekend so they have something to eat throughout the weekend. And we also have a senior community cafe. We give meals to senior citizens at a certain location in downtown Hartford, so they have something to eat over the weekend as well. So we're pretty involved. We're always giving a helping hand to the community. And Faces of Homelessness is a branch under Hands on Hartford. So our mission is basically to break down those stereotypes of what people have of homeless people. So we go to schools like here, or churches, or different organizations that want us to, spread the word about homelessness. I'm not really much of a talker. I like to interact with the audience. So I have a I have an interactive poll, and you can pull out your phones, and you can text my whole name, Sarika Walker, 506 to 22333. So again, you text the number 22333 and text my name, Sarika Walker, 506. And this poll is kind of, you just see everything instantly. Now this is my first time using it with this crowd, so hopefully it works for you guys. So you just text your answer. You'll get a text back that says if you joined or not, and it does not charge you. So the first question is, have you ever heard of Faces of Homelessness? So I just want to see and get the crowd kind of up and going with the app. So all you have to do is text A, B, or C after you get that text message sent back to you. Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, the polls kind of changed as more and more people text the answer. Okay. More people haven't heard of us. Okay, so I'm gonna change the next question. Maybe. All right. Okay, it's moving. Okay, I'm gonna change it to the next poll. Okay, so this is different. Do you have any questions or comments or questions about the video that you just saw? You can just blurt out. It's like a word bubble, so your text message will show up immediately, but we won't know who it is. So does anyone have any questions? Oh yeah, you have to actually type the question for this one. So you have to write out the comment or the question that you have about the video.
Maybe that was a grade.
That was a grade?
That was a grade. They gave it a B.
That's decent.
Yeah.
Take a B.
Anybody? No?
I give it an A.
He's like something?
It's coming up.
Oh, okay. How many people are homeless in Hartford, Connecticut? Okay. The video was eye-opening. Okay. To answer the first question, I just recently looked up. They did a report at the actually it's in my presentation, so I'll get to that later. But okay, very interesting. Anything else? Excellent video. Yeah. What did the man do in that position? Can someone explain that question? Okay, so we'll talk about the questions later as we move along. Yeah. And here's the last one. What are some stereotypes you have heard associated with the homeless population? I'm sorry? That is their fault. Okay.
That they're either alcoholic or drug addicts.
Okay. Anything else? Mental illness.
choose not to work?
So, yes, mental illness, all are addicted to drugs or they're criminals. It's always caused by a poor choice. Yeah.
You got a mental illness there.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Well, what I meant, mental illness, yes. And all homeless people are lazy. I'm pretty sure you heard of all these stereotypes. And we have to consistently tell people these are not true. Not all homeless people are associated with these stereotypes. So if you really think about it, homelessness can happen to anyone. So when I was researching about homelessness, more than 119,000 households in Connecticut spent over half of their income on rent. To afford a decent bedroom apartment, you need to be working 82 hours if you're on a minimum wage, which is Connecticut's minimum wage is $9.60. So you gotta put that into consideration. If you're constantly working just to meet ends with the rent, you can't put that into grocery shopping, your insurance, health insurance, groceries, what you're eating, if you have kids, if you need transportation, that's a lot, and that can put a lot of barriers in people's ways if they're trying to get a stable housing or just a stable life. There's a lot to think about. So 3 things you should know: that people who are homeless, they're people. Some people, if you see someone on the side of the road, they feel like they have to treat them differently. That's not true. They have dreams, they have aspirations. You should treat them all the same. I know one of my colleagues were telling me, I think back in the 80s, there was a show called Bum Hunters, and they legit had a bounty hunter looking out for homeless people that are sleeping in the streets and just terrorizing them, attacking them for no reason. Like, guess they didn't understand that they're people too, so you should all treat them the same. So the next slides that I'm going to show you are pictures of people that were in Florida, Orlando, Florida, and it was a project called Cardboard Stories, and they just went around and asked some homeless people to write down some positions that they were before they were homeless. So this young lady, she was a figure skater before she was homeless. And this man was into football, I believe, Buffalo Bills. It was football, right? Yeah. And this guy had a biology degree from West Virginia University. So this can target anyone. It could happen to anyone in their point of life where everything could just, come all at the same time. Number 2, there isn't just one story. For you guys to raise your hands is another interactive part. How many stories do you think are in the U.S. today? If you think it's A, raise your hand. No, okay. If you think it's B, raise your hand. C? D? Okay. Actually, it's C. And when you think about it, everyone knows this is Fenway Park. All of those stories could fit in this park 16 times. So that's just a thing to think about, like how many stories are out there that people don't know or people are judging. And when I was looking on the Connecticut Coalition, homelessness is really targeting the minority population. 38.2% of homelessness is seen in the Black community. And then it keeps going down as the races go down. Whites are 34.4, multiple races 22.8, and so on. And even in the youth population, an estimated 3,000 youth under the age of 25 experience homelessness in Connecticut. And just know the stories may surprise you. You might see someone walking down the street and you just think they're fine, but you don't know what that person is going through. You don't know what they're enduring. So does anyone know some causes that might lead to homelessness? You could just shout them out. I'm sorry? Family issues? Loss of job? Income? Bankruptcy, debt, foreclosure, lack of health care. Did anyone say affordable housing? That is the number one. As I said before, if you are working a job and you're only getting minimum wage, it's kind of hard to balance that with rent and other things that you have to pay for. So affordable housing is really lacking, along with unemployment, poverty, eviction, domestic violence, mental illness, lack of services, lack of help that they may need. So now, after just giving you some facts and giving you time to think, we're going to hear from our experts. So Ralph, you can come up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sarika. I think I'll try sticking with this microphone at first, see how that goes. Yeah, this is Sarika's first one of these events, so I think she deserves another round of applause. And actually, Tunxis was the first place that I ever spoke. I know some of you recognize me, so it's great to be back here, and I'm glad all of you people are interested in the topic, or if you're just here as a class requirement, that's fine too, because I'm just going to go with the assumption that you're all very kind, caring, and dedicated to social justice individuals. So that's the assumption I'm going with today. So I just want to talk a little bit about the video first. That video was created from a poem that I wrote, and the poem turned into a song, and the song turned into that video. But the interesting thing is that all the people that you saw in the video are actual people who are experiencing homelessness when they were filmed. And I'm happy to say that since the video was made, which was probably about, 2 years ago?
Yeah, just about 2 years.
Okay, so maybe 2 years ago, everybody in the video is doing much better. Some of them are in school, and some of them have got housing, and so things are looking up for everybody who was involved with that process. So, and I'm very proud that the video is used in these presentations. I really didn't know what it was going to turn into when we did it. I just liked the idea of turning my poem into a song. So I'm very happy with the results that came out of that. And I think it benefited everyone who was involved, including the people who actually did the filming and everything else. So I'm going to try to give you a deeper idea of what it's like to be homeless. The idea is to break down stereotypes. Yes, that's part of it. But stereotypes exist in all aspects of life, and so I don't think me telling you a story is going to completely solve the issue. But in fact, in some ways, my story is a stereotypical story of a person who made bad choices. Now, you can look at that and say, well, if you make bad choices, then the results are what you should expect from bad choices, and I don't disagree with that. But what I would like to say about that is that if a person makes bad choices, I'm sure none of you have ever made a bad choice. I'm sure I'm probably the only one who's ever made bad choices. So we'll just go with that for now. But when you make a bad choice and you pay the consequences of that choice, and you find yourself in a very bad situation, sometimes you need a little help. Sometimes you need a little help to get back on your feet. Sometimes you're trying to get your life in order, and you just need some help. And thank the Lord for the soup kitchens that exist, the other resources that are out there, because without those things, a lot of people would be really, really in a lot worse shape. So I have so many stories about being. I was homeless on and off for about 10 years. Okay, so I mean, I have stories and stories and stories. So I'm just going to pick one that maybe represents a certain aspect of homelessness. So my journey from homelessness started when I was an entrepreneur and I had an auto body shop, and things didn't work out because of the economy, a recession, and I was going through a difficult time. I had to liquidate my assets, which included a building that I had purchased, and I had tow trucks, and I had all sorts of stuff, people working for me, and all sorts of stuff related to auto body, equipment, everything, customers, the whole deal. Well, that was pretty much my life up until this huge recession hit, the real estate market crashed, I couldn't refinance the building, I had to make some hard choices, and the only choice I really had was to liquidate the business. So I was in the process of doing that and trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and I got into a car accident. 18-wheeler, made a bad turn, crushed me and my little Land Cruiser between the telephone pole and the 18-wheeler, and smashed it up real good. Luckily, I wasn't too seriously hurt, but I did sustain a back injury, and that required physical therapy and pain medication. So some of you could probably guess where this story is going now. At first, I was okay with the pain medication and everything was fine, but due to the addictive nature of pain medication, I became an addict. So the addiction didn't have anything to do with me losing the business. That was just other things outside of my control. But it took me down a very, very bad path and led to some very dark and lonely times in my life. So eventually I was homeless with my girlfriend at the time. Her name was Kim. So Kim and I were homeless addicts together. So this, of course, was a new experience for me, being homeless in Hartford. I grew up in South Windsor, nice community, nice schools, so here I am in Hartford with a habit and a girlfriend and no place to stay and no money and no car, and so I made different attempts to get work, and I had some friends who would hire me occasionally and things of that nature, trying to figure out how to get sort of back on track. Of course, the first thing I needed to do was figure out how to deal with the addiction issue. So one of the things that happened was that I ended up going to jail for possession, and I'd never been to jail before. So at this time, the way the jail was, they didn't give you anything to detox jail. So detoxing off of heroin in prison with nothing but aspirin is probably about as miserable of a situation as you could ever imagine yourself being in. Fortunately, the other inmates were actually fairly decent human beings, is the only way I can put it, and they actually understood and they actually helped me get through that. So, but one of the things I discovered when I went to prison for the first time, because it happened again after that, was that there's actually people in Connecticut who choose to go to prison in the winter instead of dealing with the harsh weather in Connecticut. So the expression they use for that is called throwing the brick. And they call it that because they'll throw a rock to a window, commit a small misdemeanor, whatever, every winter, get themselves locked up for a few months, and then they have a warm meal and a place to sleep. Now that was even an eye-opener to me, and I had been on the streets for a little while now. But I found it really shocking that people had to resort to that form of desperation in order to stay warm and get a hot meal. But if you've ever been in a shelter, the shelters that are available, you might be able to understand why, because the shelter system is kind of a Band-Aid on a hemorrhage, so it's kind of like warehousing people. It's not really designed to meet the real fundamental problems, the needs, if it's mental illness, if it's addiction, they're really not designed for that. It's just designed to put a roof over your head, give you a night's stay. So, and if you're in any type of relationship, the shelter system is even more difficult, or families. There's very few family shelters to begin with. But I was in a relationship with this girl, and they wouldn't let us stay, together, and she had to go one place, I had to go somewhere else, and it just became this logistical nightmare pretty much. So we would just do other things, like sometimes we slept in the park. I slept in Riverfront Park one night. We put cardboard down, newspaper in the summer. I got bit by a spider, and the spider laid eggs in my arm, and I got a massive staph infection. My whole arm blew up. I looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger on one side. And the hospital, when they saw the stuff coming out of the wound, they shook their heads, the doctors, and said, I've never seen anything like that before. And they were going to let me go, but unfortunately my girlfriend was there, and she was one of those people who wasn't afraid to speak her mind. So she said, you can't let him go. I mean, it's crazy, So they did an MRI, and they found out the infection was moving so fast that it would have gone into my heart. And so they did emergency surgery, and this is all from a spider bite. Apparently spiders can lay eggs in somewhere nearby. I've never heard of such a thing, but that's what happened. So they did emergency surgery and took care of it. So that was one thing that happened while I was homeless. And with this girl, Kim, we had, at one point I did have a car, so we had experienced sort of living in a car, which is extremely difficult because wherever you park, somebody has a problem with it, and they see you sleeping in the car, they think either you're dead or you're trespassing, or it doesn't matter where you think like you could go to like a commuter parking lot and be like, well, that makes sense. People park there all the time. You figure travelers park there. Wrong. Police go through there all the time. They see you sleeping. They wake you up. You know how many nights I got woken up with a big flashlight in my face and I was fast asleep in the front seat of the car. Living in a car is extremely difficult. All your belongings are with you. You have no place to do your laundry. You have nowhere to take a shower. I mean, obviously, there are places you can take a shower, but you can't take it when you want to or when you really need to. It's always a matter of, And so there's all these. And at another point, we lived in a tent by a river. Living outside may sound like fun for some people. And for a little while, it's it's not bad. Like if you go camping, you're living outside. It's communing with nature, great idea. But when you have to do it for your actual existence, it is not fun. And what happens is someone always comes and ransacks your stuff with your kids or whatever. We know some people that were living in the same spot for a long time, and for no reason whatsoever, somebody came and lit all their stuff on fire. And this is the type of things that happen when you're living outdoors, when you're homeless. A lot of people don't realize that homeless people are the victim of crimes at a much higher percentage than the regular population. And a lot of those crimes go unreported. So they're already in a bad spot, and now for some reason, people find other ways to make their situation worse. So it's pretty horrible. So Kim and I, together, living on the street, living in wherever we can do, and I managed to find some work. So I started to get a little income coming in, and I saved up about $300, and I said, well, let's see if we can find ourselves a cheap place to live. So obviously $300 is going to go far, but there are such things as rooming houses. So the rooming house is $75 a week. So the only one I can find that is $75 a week and has rooms is on Zion Street. Is anybody here familiar with Hartford? Okay. So, I move in with my girlfriend Kim, my little thing. 2 Caucasian people from the suburbs move in to a rooming house on Zion Street. And unbeknownst to us, it's a gang meeting house. This is where they meet when they figure out what they're going to do every day. So we get our room, and when I first got the key, the owner, who was a retired police officer who owned this rooming house, actually asked me, you you sure you want to live here? Are you sure you want to live here? I said, man, I'm tired of getting bit by spiders. I'm tired of living in the woods. I need a roof. I don't care what the hazards are. So he's like, okay, I just want to tell you this is not a very nice place to be. Okay. So we move in there. Immediately, we start coming into problems. All the men were very disrespectful to my girlfriend, Kim. So I had to constantly stand up for myself. Now, when I was younger, I used to train to fight. So, I had experience. I used to box and stuff like that. So, at one point, it got really dangerous in this house. I mean, there was guns and knives and it was just crazy. So we would just stay away as long as we could. And then when we needed to come in, we'd come in late at night just to have a place to sleep, So eventually it got so dangerous that one of the people who had a lot of respect needed a place to stay. So, okay, we'll make a deal with you. You can stay in our space when we're not using it, and sometimes you can stay and sleep on the floor. Just keep the riffraff away from us as much as you can, So that was okay. Of course, what happened was he started trying to take over and call the shots, and so him and I were always having some friction, trying to deal with this. And then eventually, one of the people in there who was selling crack cocaine, he was a crack dealer, somebody had stolen some of his merchandise. At the time, I wasn't doing crack. I was addicted to heroin, but I wasn't smoking crack. But I'm not making any judgments on that. One thing, whatever. So they actually went to me and said that I must have done it because I think I probably thought I was an easy target, So and actually, it was the guy who was sleeping in our room was the one who actually did it. But I think since they were afraid to confront him, they decided to choose me. And so every day when we came home, didn't matter what time it was, somebody would be sitting on the front step saying, "You got my money." And I'd be like, I don't smoke crack, okay? Everybody knows that. I'm not going to give you any money. Sorry, even if I had it, I'm not giving it to you because I didn't do it. So, of course, I'm not going to say who did do it because then that's violating some other rule. Now I'm some kind of a snitch. So I'm caught in between a rock and a hard place, right? So eventually, it kept getting worse. The harassment, the threats continued to get worse. So I finally got tired of it. 5 minutes? Well, I could tell you the story forever, but so I ended up just telling the guy, all right, we're just going to settle this the old-fashioned way. And him and I stood in the middle of the lobby of the place, and while all the gang members stood around, and I had to tell everybody, can we keep this fair? It's only me, So him and I just duked it out, and I ended up getting the better of them. I thought for sure they were all going to jump me and everything, but they didn't. So that's the only way I had to deal with it, and that's what I did. Shortly after that, the whole house got raided. It took a bunch of people away in handcuffs. It didn't have anything to do with me. It's just the way it was. And eventually we just couldn't take anything else that was going on, and so we had to leave. But the story, you know, just exemplifies the difficulty you have when you're trying to make that, when you reach that bottom point where you have nothing left. You know, it's all you have is your belongings you're carrying with you. It is so difficult to get from that step to even the next basic step, which is just having a roof over your head. That jump is the hardest jump you could possibly imagine, you know? Because things like getting a job and all that stuff, well, you need transportation, you need ID, you know, those things, and so everything is multiplied by 100 in the sense of difficulty that it is. So that's why I say thank God for soup kitchens, thank God for people who care, thank God. And so let me just fast forward the story because I'm running out of time. So after relapsing a couple times, going to jail a couple times, and you know, this process, vicious cycle went on for quite a few years. The last time I got out, I said, that's it, I'm done, I got to do something else. And I had learned to survive in prison by writing. Everybody knew that if you needed something written, whether it was a poem or a letter to the judge, I was that guy. That was what I was known for. So writing literally allowed me to eat and survive in prison. And when people think you can help them defend them in court, then you make a lot of friends and a lot of people watch your back. So writing is extremely powerful. So when I got out, there was an amazing event Hands on Hartford put on at the Hartford Library, and Ann was there. And they had an open mic, and I went up and performed a spoken word piece that I had written while I was locked up. And she invited me to join the Hands on Hartford, and also the newspaper. It's called Beat of the Street. There's a whole pile of them back there, different months. I think they're probably not up to date, but I encourage everybody to grab one. And so I started writing for the paper, and I started my own column. It's called Barbed Wire. This one here is Barbed Wire, Wake Up and Smell the Justice. Okay, that's one of my things that I do. So, and then she also invited me to join the Speakers Bureau, so I thank Ann, because if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be standing here anyway. I'd probably be here, but not here. So, anyway, so after signing up with the newspaper, I also found out that the newspaper is sponsored by Charter Oak Community Center. Well, they also have this other program. It's called the Bots School, and I just joined it to stay out of trouble. I didn't have any idea where it was going to lead. It was just something to keep me focused until I was off parole. So I joined that, and then I found out when I finished that I was entitled to a scholarship to Goodwin College. So fast forward, it's only been, what, 2 years? Maybe we're going on year 3, right? About to graduate from Goodwin. I got 5 classes left. I've been writing my column. I made the video, a YouTube channel. I just started a blog a couple months ago. It's called theloophole.com, but there's a hyphen between loop and hole. So you can check that out, theloophole.com. That's my blog. That's basically to speak about events like this and to expose more people to my writing. And I just found out yesterday that the scholarship includes another 2 years, so I'll be able to get a bachelor's degree, which gets me choked up because it's so exciting. And my long-term goal is that after I get a bachelor's degree, I would like to go to law school if I can figure out how to get the money or something and become a defense attorney, just because of all the stuff I see on the news every night. And nobody knows more about going to jail than someone who's been there. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. Oh,
my name's Peter Soprano. And the thing is, homeless people, how much does drugs cost on the street?
per day, per hour, per what?
Whatever you want it for.
It cost, I was spending between $50 and $100 a day until I got to the point where I couldn't anymore. Then it was just like $10 a day.
Well, how could homeless people afford that?
Well,
But they don't all take drugs?
no,
Right?
no.
Oh, okay,
They don't-
that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That would be the first thing, yeah. They're not-
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm a World War II veteran.
I understand that.
I'm
And
not gonna tell you how old I am. I was born March 21st, 1926. I never give my age.
right.
Thank you.
Well, we all appreciate your service.
Yeah, and I love it here. Thank you.
I would just ask that we're going to have a
Thank you.
question and answer session at the end. So if anybody has any questions for me, just file them, and after we're done, you can ask anything you want. And speaking for myself, there's no questions that are too personal. So just throw it out there, and I'll get it to you straight. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Ralph.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we're gonna have Ian come up.
Homeless,
Oh,
please help. I've been homeless. Why was I homeless? Come on, shoot it at me. Why? Why did I become homeless? Hit me.
got a divorce.
Got a divorce. I did that, but that was many, many years before I became homeless. Drugs.
Lost your job.
Lost a job. Anybody else?
Drugs.
Drugs, right. Okay, we got that one. We got that one twice, Peter. Thank you.
Domestic violence.
What's that?
Domestic violence.
Domestic violence. Okay, I was homeless because I'm stupid. Because I don't know how to save money. That was the main reason. She had it right. I lost a job. I lost a second job. I lost a third job. Starting in 2008, there was this thing called a recession. A lot of you were probably still in junior high at that time. It hit a lot of people hard. A lot of people became homeless. I was one of them. Didn't happen instantly, but I hadn't saved money. I wasn't a spendthrift, but I didn't know how to save either. I did the usual things. I paid my living expenses, raised my kids, insurance, blah, 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 food, everything else. By the way, I was an editor and writer for most of those years, but I was not when I became homeless. So, I was at that time in my early 60s. I'm 66 years old now. I'm your grandmother. Anybody here ever have a grandmother who was homeless? Because my grandchildren did. Fortunately, they didn't know about it because I didn't broadcast it very much. So I became homeless in my early 60s, and I used what little money I did have while I kept trying to get a job. And at that point, I was competing with so many other people for jobs and things that I knew I was highly qualified for, or I had references, experience, everything else that would have won me that job at any other point. Couldn't do it at that time. It was ridiculous. It was even jobs that really required no great skill or experience. The competition was fierce, and my age didn't help either. By the way, my hair is like totally white under here, and that's when I started coloring it when I was in the job market, because I figured, oh, that might help, so they don't think I'm their great-grandmother. Well, I ended up in a shelter, and a shelter was something I knew absolutely nothing about at that time. Nothing. And I couldn't believe it, but I was fortunate because I had spent what little money I had living in a really low-down, cheesy motel on the Berlin Turnpike. Trust me, do not go there, okay? But it was all I could afford at the time while I was looking for work. I did some couch surfing. I spent some time, not a lot, sleeping in my car. And what Ralph said is true. On the window. Can't sleep here. Okay. You got any other place for me to go? You could try a shelter. Well, there weren't any. I did get into one. It was a shelter for women only. There were 13 women. It was one floor of a building. It was a foreign country for me. I walked in. I will say that I was at that time, the only Caucasian person in the shelter. I was by far the oldest person there. And it took some getting used to. Fortunately, we did not have to sleep dormitory, or when I say dormitory, barrack style with everybody in the same room. It wasn't like that. It was pretty good as far as shelters go. It didn't provide meals. So we had a kitchen, and we had 13 women all trying to make their dinner at the same time, which didn't always work out that well. It took some getting used to. I think I was looked at a little bit askance when I got there, like, what, okay, who's this woman? Like, she dresses pretty well, she's got a car, she uses words of multi-syllables all the time, and she doesn't seem to have any serious problems that we can see. Well, that's one of the things you find out. There's a million different reasons why a million different people can become homeless. There is no one-size-fits-all reason. And as Sarika told you, the number one reason is lack of affordable housing. The number two reason is a lack of living wage jobs. Those are two of the main things right there. Yes, there are people who have addiction, there are people who have mental illness, there are people who are victims of domestic violence, there are people who have had severe health problems that have wiped out their savings. There are people who have lost jobs and have ended up losing their homes. It's a lot of different reasons and a lot of different people. That's one thing you got to keep in mind. How do we look at the homeless? You're driving down the street, if you're getting to the on-ramp to get on the highway and someone's standing out there with one of these signs. What's your first reaction? You avert your eyes. You lean over to fiddle with the radio. You look down at your phone. You do anything to avoid making eye contact with that person. I've done it. And I bet some of you have done it. You don't know where to look. You don't know what to do. You're feeling mixed feelings. You're thinking, I feel bad for that person, but I don't know if I want to give them anything because they might use it for something like drugs or alcohol or whatever. You might be thinking, hey, they got themselves in that own position. If they really wanted a job, they could get a job. They wouldn't have to be standing on a street corner begging. But we avoid looking at those people. When I became homeless, and I started spending a lot of time on the street in Hartford only because I was walking around, going different places, anything to get out of the shelter during the daytime and still feel like I was part of the bigger, wider world, I would walk by areas where the homeless would congregate. And at that point, my attitude was different. And I would walk down the sidewalk near the shelters, near the places where they congregate, the bodegas, and I would look at them as I passed and look them in the eye and say, good morning, how are you? Hi, just anything, but to make that eye contact, because you are still a human being. You may be homeless, you may be an addict, you may be mentally ill, you may have lost your job, you may have a debilitating disease, but you're a person. You weren't born that way. You had a family, you had a mother, you had a life, you went to school. But now, you're down and out. But that doesn't mean you're finished. And if someone would come to me and ask, can you spare change? Can you spare this and that? If I had something, once in a while I'd give them something. I'm a smoker. They'd say, do you have a cigarette? I'd give them a cigarette. But one thing is, if I had nothing to give, I would say, I'm sorry. I can't help you today. All I can do is wish that you have a better day tomorrow. And you know what? Sometimes people appreciated that. They appreciated that someone didn't look the other way or cross the street. We have a big problem in Hartford and in the state and in the entire country with the veteran population, the homeless veterans. It's a scandal, it's a disgrace, it's a bad, bad thing. The veteran population that is homeless is growing, as well as the suicide rate among veterans is growing. And the suicide rate among homeless veterans is probably the highest one of all. I wear this button, as you might see. Remember, Vietnam vets. Vietnam is my generation. I've been involved with Vietnam veterans centers for many years. I have people in my family, people in my life who were veterans. It's very important to me. 47% of homeless veterans are Vietnam-era veterans, which means they are men and women who are well over 60, in their 60s and 70s, and perhaps even some that are 80 because that war started about 55 years ago. These people should not have to worry about where they're going to lay their head at night. They went somewhere, whether it was Vietnam, whether it was the North Atlantic, the South Pacific, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, anywhere, and did a job that no one else wanted to do. This shouldn't be happening. While I was in the shelter, I tried not to lose my faith in who I was, my integrity, my previous life that had been a fairly successful one, and I turned, like Ralph, back to writing poetry, which I had done before. And one day, I was in Bushnell Park in Hartford, and a lot of homeless people congregate there. The city's not too crazy about that. That's their crown jewel of parks in the city, and they don't like to see people sleeping on benches or carrying bags with returnables in them or lying on the grass taking a nap. They don't enjoy that. They want to see downtown people, you know, throwing a frisbee to their dog or whatever. So I was in the park one day, homeless, not looking homeless, but it was surrounded by many people who were homeless and where it was more visible, and I wrote this. It's called My Mind Wanders to Bushnell Park. Now I've seen it change from summer to fall since I've been staying here, just a stone's throw away. This green space, courtesy of Horace, who gave his land, once the dump, to the city of the people, by the people, for the people. October 15th, 1969, Moratorium Day. I'm in the park with the people who just marched in from the north end of Main Street, and all we are saying and singing is Give Peace a Chance. Young and old, so alive and aware, you can almost see the minds opening. I'm in the park with Barbara, 1980-something, lunch and a smoke and a bright, bright, sunshiny day. You can see clearly now, 2 30-somethings riding painted ponies past the flashing, brilliant, changing seasons. Girls can't stop smiling on the carousel. There was Monday night jazz and June blues, fiddles with Peace Train and Twain in August. Saw Arlo and Genius Ray, the Temps and Richie Havens play to the crowds, blanket to blanket. Meeting on the corner for early morning strolls with a longtime lover. Benches by the pond, a place in the sun. Soft talking, some kidding, much laughing, deep looks. Autumn of our years, but forever young in each other's eyes. Now I see people like me, not looking like me, with bags and backpacks and coffee cups, daydreaming, dozing, or just staring, yet with mutual recognition that once we had homes. Writing saved me. Like Ralph, I discovered this paper. We used to get it at the shelter, and I called them up and said, hey, can I come over and join your group? And they said, yeah. And someone there said to me, we have this Faces of Homelessness Speakers Bureau too. Would you be interested in participating? Those things were good because they gave me a mission, because I saw another side of life that I hadn't seen earlier, and I was never going to forget it no matter what happened to me. My life changed for the better, for many reasons, and it is a good life now. If there is one thing I have learned in my 66 years of life, it is that education and money are not indicators of a person's success as a human being. If I ever had any awe of those accomplishments, I lost it years ago. Truly. Many of the most intelligent, creative, loving, caring, perceptive people I know live humble lives. They are laborers, hourly workers, and even the unemployed and the homeless. Those who breathe the rarefied air of advanced degrees, fame, and wealth cannot and should not rest on those dubious laurels. It is what they do with their education and money to better the lives of the poorest in our society that defines them as being worthy of my respect. And that is where I stand now. And I'm angry a lot of the time. I mean, my life is good, but I'm angry because I live in Hartford and I don't like what's going on there. We have a big problem with homelessness. And yet I see my city spending money on things like baseball stadiums. I see my city that I love building apartments that the rent is $2,000 a month and up. I see this going on. I see people who live in that little area called downtown who are very upset because on the fringes they see homeless people sitting in the parks. They see homeless people walking down the street. They see homeless people who come up to them and say, "Have you got a quarter?" And it bothers them because this is not the city that they moved here to live in, and they want those people to become invisible. Instead of trying to find ways to get them housed, find ways to get them back on their feet, help them get jobs, help them get their lives back, they want them to go away. And this makes me angry, and it's righteous anger. And I carry it around. I carry it around and I speak. I spend a lot of time speaking in front of the city council. I spend a lot of time speaking in general, writing, and this is important to me because we cannot turn a blind eye. And I have one last thing I'd like to leave you with, and that is this. There's a Greek root word, pathos. Pathos means feeling. And from that root word, pathos, we get 4 different ways that people can look at the issue of homelessness. The first is sympathy. You all know what sympathy is. You bought sympathy cards for people. Sympathy is the act of being inclined to support, to be loyal to, or agree with an opinion or feeling someone's having. Oh, I sympathize with you. Yes, that sounds like a bad situation. It's a nice sentiment. It's passive. It's passive, but it's not evil, it's not bad, but it's sympathy, and it's very easy to say my sympathies. And how many times do we hear someone died and 1,000 people say sorry for your loss, sorry for your loss, sorry for your loss, sorry for your loss. Those words become a little empty after a while. I personally hope sorry for your loss goes out of the lexicon and people just say something from their heart. So that's sympathy. Then you get another word from that root, apathy. Apathy. And apathy is how a lot of people look at the issue of homelessness. Apathy, and I know you all know, but I'm going to read it anyway, is a total lack of caring or understanding, along with no desire to care or understand the situation, the issue, the problem. Apathy is the most common way people view homelessness. It doesn't affect me. I really have no opinion about it. As far as I can see, these people, must have done something wrong to get themselves in this situation, and they need to get themselves out. Then there's the big bad one, antipathy. Antipathy, that's out and out hate. It's dislike. It's active. It's not passive. Antipathy is hate. As Ralph told you, a lot of homeless people are victims of crimes. They're victims of crimes because people hate them. They're hated. It's a bad thing, but it happens. And it happens in many places. The fourth one is what we would like to achieve when we give these talks. We want people to have empathy. I knew you knew that one was coming. And the empathy differs from sympathy. Empathy is the act of truly feeling and understanding someone's situation, and the ability to imagine what it would be like to be in that situation yourself. Empathy. This is what Faces of Homelessness tries to bring when we speak to colleges, middle schools, law schools, faith groups, community groups, professional organizations, anyone who wants to help know more about the issue of homelessness. And our job is to kind of bust the myths and bust the stereotypes and offer people opportunities to give of themselves to do that. Most of you are students here, and not putting that down. I mean, education is a fabulous thing. I have a little myself. And I hope when you graduate or complete your programs here that you move on to what you really want to do and give your talents to the world and become successful in whatever defines success for you. But I will ask you when you do to please keep one little corner of your mind and your heart aware that there are many in this country who just don't have those opportunities and who may never be able to achieve the things you achieve. But we can certainly try to reduce their numbers and keep a little something there and help out when you can, not necessarily with money, but keep it in mind that we live in an unequal world, and it's polarizing even more day by day. I mean, pretty soon we're going to be just a two-class society, the haves and the have-nots. We don't want to see that happen. Thank you for your time.
I know a lot of people have to go, but can you please fill out these pink surveys that you see near your chair? And you can hand them to me at the front or in the back table. Just a quick thing, if you guys have any questions for our speakers, anyone want to ask a question before they go? We have a question in the back. I'm sorry, can you say that last part? Yeah.
So typically think of homeless people as not really being involved in a family or, involved in a family or working in a group. And Anne was talking about her having children. And Ralph was in a relationship. How did that continue on when you didn't become homeless anymore? Were you still in that relationship?
No.
No. I mean, it sounds like you went through a lot together as a couple, so I mean, it really makes people stronger. You know,
Sometimes it does, but
it's sad.
I think sometimes when people are too much alike, then they're really not doing each other any good by continuing to, continue the same habits, so we both changed at our own pace. Like, she's in a better place now as well, but we didn't change at the same pace, so we just split up. It was easier. Yeah.
I have two grown sons. One's married, 2 grandchildren. Neither of them live in the state. And the sons knew that I was trying to find permanent housing, but I played it down. I didn't want to worry them. They're good men. They live good lives. I played it down. There were very few people who I knew that I actually told about this. Just a few close friends, and of course others that I've met, through the newspaper, Faces of Homelessness, people like that. But part of it was a pride issue. Part of it was I just didn't want to get into big long explanations. I knew I come from tough stock, and I knew somehow I was going to pull myself out of this.
Anyone else? Here at the front? Go ahead.
For both of you, while being homeless, I know you both said you met a lot of people that were against it or hated it or were friendly.
get into school and all that stuff. So, you know, when I speak, I try to, you know, unfortunately it's kind of a short, compressed speech, but really, you know, there's good and bad for everything. And I try to get across that, you know, without the systems that are in place, things would be so much harder. So I'm very grateful for everything, from the people who hand out sandwiches at the park on a Saturday when there's no place to eat, to the people who volunteer, to people like yourself who just listen and take stock of what is going on. You know, I'm grateful for all of that. So there definitely are good, kind, caring people. And even some of the homeless people that I met that were homeless just like me, it becomes somewhat of a fraternity. You know, you're in the same situation, and you try to learn the resources that are available. So one thing that I do, if I spot somebody in Hartford who I haven't seen and I can tell they're in a bad spot, I kind of get an idea that they're from out of town or out of state. If I see those people, I make it a point to, even if I'm in a hurry, to just tell them where the resources are. You know, they're new, and I met a girl just the other day in front of Burger King. Her and her fiance got here from New York. They're both homeless, bad shape, and I gave her a whole list, you know. And that's just a quick thing that I can do to help somebody. It doesn't cost money. It's all it takes is a minute of my time.
Actually, on the back of Beat of the Street, there's a list there, and I keep some in my car to give to people, where every day of the week in Hartford, there's a place where you can have, at least one place where you can have breakfast, lunch, or dinner every day of the week, and also where the food share sites are. That's when they bring groceries and you know, produce, and people can get some for free. It's very, very important. But yeah, the thing with the homeless is you do become a kind of a community. You're very kind to each other. There's even, you know, there's usually a lot of hugging and cheek kissing and camaraderie and back, you know, hand on the shoulder, because most of them have suffered, and it's kind of like veterans in that way. Nobody really understands the shoes that you've walked in unless they've walked in them themselves. You know, that translates to lots of different situations in life, but particularly with homelessness. You form a bond.
I hope that answered your question.
Sorry, her question was there any resources that help them? That's what you're
Not
saying?
resources,
Oh.
regular
People that just helping them along the way?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
There
yes.
definitely are, and the people definitely appreciate it. You know, even just to stop and have a conversation.
So what you guys could do to kind of help move this movement is if you guys could educate people. All this stuff is online. Like, there's National Homeless Coalition. The reports are online. It tells you what's going on in Hartford or in the state of Connecticut itself. So you got to educate yourself and others. And you can donate the time to a local community center. In Hartford, we have our soup kitchen, and we're always looking for volunteers, or we're always looking for food drives. If you guys want to team up with one of your school classes or anything, any programs, clubs, you could do a food drive or even clothes drive, anything like that, kind of give back. Yes?
Actually, we have started a food pantry for students.
Oh, okay.
It's right there, behind that door over there. I don't know if people can hear me, but right down there, we just started that initiative, so people don't know about it. We have a Tunxis food pantry now on campus for students in need. Yeah, we just started it.
Yeah, so if you guys ever need any community hours or just want to help give back, you can come sign up and we can contact you with any opportunities that we have at Hands on Hartford. And advocate as well. Like, if you know there's a problem in your community, make sure you go out there and speak your mind and, you know, educate others on what topics or issues that's going on in your area. And that's pretty much it.
And we have several different speakers in the bureau besides Ralph and I. We you know, there are others, and if you belong to any churches or faith groups or professional organizations that you think might benefit from a visit from some Faces of Homelessness speakers, please let Sarika know. And also, we do a thing called Feet on the Street, where groups can come to Hartford and actually tour a shelter, and then you work preparing a meal for a homeless population in one of the shelters. It could be Peter's Retreat, it could be
Our community meal soup kitchen, which is across the street from community. It's from Capital Community College, actually.
You have a guided tour of the downtown area and the areas where there are shelters and where the homeless congregate, and to be able to see firsthand the gratitude and appreciation that people have for being served a wonderful hot meal.
So thank you guys for coming. Thank you for listening. And I don't know if Marie has last closing.